Hi, everyone. My name is Maria, and I'm the founder of Travelries, the travel consultancy that helps make it easier for the average person to travel long-term on trips like adult gap years and travel sabbaticals. Most of the time I'm on here talking about travel, but today is different. And that's because many people taking adult gap years, sabbaticals, they are going through a personal transformation. They have a desire to make sometimes an immense change, to change almost everything about their lives. And that drove the trip in the first place. I'm very excited to have with me today Dr. Mandy Zimmerman to talk more about these kinds of breaks and the personal transformations that can come with them. Mandy was originally a chemist, but today she is a leadership mentor who helps people through their own personal transformations during sabbaticals. So she is the perfect person to talk about this meaty topic with me. Mandy, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Maria, for having me. I'm very excited to share a little bit more about this journey as well, and of course the journey that I'm helping others with to go through.
Excellent. All right, well, let's dive right in. So for people who have never taken a sabbatical, how do you define what a sabbatical actually is in the first place and what it isn't?
Well, what it's definitely not is just a long vacation, right? So some people think, especially when we talk about travel, that you help with a lot, people think like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just take a long vacation, some time off, or they're packing it full with to-dos. This city and maybe this project, and here I want to learn a language, whatever, which is great. But a sabbatical is not meant for packed full of to-dos or only a vacation. It's really, as you said beautifully before, it's for a personal transformation. So it's time and space to step out of your original environment and the environment that brought you to the thought that you need some time off, and really to work on yourself inside and do this transformation of yourself, of who you want to be in the workplace, who you want to be in life, and what your life should look like.
What kinds of people typically come to you and say, I want to take a sabbatical, I want to change something about my life in this potentially large or small way?
Yeah, for me, it's very often leaders in organizations, mid-level, high-level leaders, because I have been working with leaders for a long time now. I'm usually they're like midterm in their career, and they're at a position where they feel too young to do the same thing forever and ever, to still work for 20 plus years in the same situation, and they're not happy. And they also feel too old in terms of they have progressed in their career so far already. They maybe have a PhD, they have a leadership position and say, I cannot really change, I cannot step out. And so they're in this struggle of feeling too old and too young at the same time, and having a little bit of, struggling with purpose and sense.
Yeah, it feels like they feel stuck, I have to imagine. Is it only academics who take sabbaticals in your experience?
No, it's so in Germany, I don't know about the US and the rest of the world, but in Germany, academics, or let's say teachers and professors, they have like a regulation that they're allowed to take sabbaticals, so that's very normal for them. But then in the private industry, like it's not very common yet. And yes, it's often academics or people in high positions because just they can afford it more. Mm-hmm. But also they're often enough the ones having so much responsibility and saying, I really have to step out and I have to reconsider all my life choices at this point.
Yeah. I think you said in private industry, it's less common. That's certainly the case here in the US as well. And I hear so many misconceptions about these types of breaks. In your experience, what is the biggest misconception that you've heard from people, maybe in private industry or maybe elsewhere, about taking time off to travel or to go through a personal transformation?
Yeah, so I think the number one is it looks bad on my CV. So thinking, okay, if I take a year off, it interrupts my career. It maybe looks bad that I'm lazy, I'm weak for whatever reason. I'm taking it, so maybe it's like I shouldn't do this. I have way too much responsibility. So all these excuses to say no, I think that doesn't look good. So I better don't do it. Or others might say or think like, hey, you know what? Like this person is weak or lazy. I think most of the time others don't think this about ourselves. It's like us, most of the time thinking everyone looks at us and it looks bad. But actually, most people are thinking like, wow, this person is so courageous. I wish I would do the same. Or I could do the same.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. That was my number one fear. I took a gap year in 2023. I traveled around the world. It was incredible. And I was incredibly worried I would have this gap on my resume and it might get longer. Maybe it would take me a long time to find a job after, and that people would judge I'd become unemployable. And in fact, in every single interview I've had since that gap year, obviously running my own company now, but people were jealous and they had questions. And it became almost strategic because I could count on 5 to 10 minutes of any interview being about where did I travel and what did I like, and I could tell these interesting stories about myself. And then as a hiring manager, when I was hiring people for my team and they would see on my LinkedIn, oh, you had this career break, people would ask me questions about it. And as someone who is, I wouldn't describe myself as cool, it made me seem really cool that I had done this amazing thing that not a lot of people, especially in the US, do. So 100% agree. Now, obviously, my lens here is specifically focused on travel. So I'm curious to get your perspective on a travel-oriented question or two. So why do you think stepping away, especially through travel, creates such a powerful sense of self-awareness compared to staying at home?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you want to do a real transformation in your sabbatical, right? You just don't want to, yeah, as I said before, take a long vacation or just do some fun stuff that you never have time for, and then nothing changes. So when can you change best is when you're stepping out of your normal environment. When you're stepping out also out of your comfort zone, because if you like it or not, but where you are now is your comfort zone, right? If you want to stretch, if you want to grow, you have to be a little bit uncomfortable. So you have to get a little bit into an environment that you don't know. So for some people that might be uncomfortable. When you travel, especially, I'm a fan of long travel. So not just seeing this city and doing sightseeing here and then jumping to the next country, but really staying for some time in a place. You really get new perspectives. You get totally different view on things. Just maybe an example for me, I'm from Germany and I have been living quite some time in Chile. Really learning and understanding what people do different there. And when I was coming first, I was judging because, let's be honest, we're judging about things that are different from our own. And then afterwards, I really learned to be more relaxed, for example. Germans are very perfectionistic, everything has to be efficient, everything has to be in this way. And then in Chile, I heard all the time, like, yeah, don't worry, it's like, take it easy. And I couldn't deal with this at the beginning. And then I learned, and I thought this is actually very helpful, and it makes life easier. So whatever it is for you that you have to go through a transformation, you will see different perspectives in different cultures, different countries, and just away from everyone and everything that you usually deal with. And that makes your life maybe a little bit, stuck.
Yeah, I have a slightly different perspective here too, which I'm curious to get your take on. Mm-hmm. I think travel has a way of making us more honest with ourselves. And the reason I say that is when you travel long term, you are breaking every norm in your life where and what you eat, if your bed is comfortable, what it's like to go to bed and sleep at night, who you talk to, what your responsibilities are to yourself and to other people. You're still you, but everything else has changed. And I think that inevitably forces some more honesty, because you can't blame the stressors, the context of your life anymore for the things about yourself that you didn't like. For example, before I took my adult gap year, I would have told you the reason I was stressed, the reason I couldn't close my laptop until midnight, was because the culture of where I worked was like that. It was very intense. Then I took a break, I traveled, and I was still thinking about work 4 months into my trip. I went to Italian school. I was studying for 4 hours every night. And I had to become more honest with myself that actually it probably wasn't the job. It was probably something innate to me that, with a fully different, set of contexts, I could now see, no. The only thing that hasn't changed here is me, and look at the consequences. So I think there's a level of additional honesty that comes with it too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you step out of your normal environment, you're forced to look at some things, and patterns are coming up. You're seeing patterns that you didn't see before. You're understanding them, and you understand like, oh, okay, so many things make sense now. So that's definitely something that happens as well. And it happens more when you're away from home. So it happens more when you're in different countries, as you said. That's totally correct.
Yeah. All right, let's shift away from travel sabbaticals and just start talking about this more broadly, personal transformations. How often do people return from a sabbatical realizing they do not want to go back to the same career or even the same lifestyle?
Yeah, it happens quite often, but I have to say most of the time, almost always, there is some shift that people realize something has to change. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have to change career or even the organization. That happens. But also they understand I cannot live the way as I lived before. I need to set boundaries. I need to have some non-negotiables where my life has to go this way. My work day has to look in a certain way. So they come back and set boundaries in their job. If or if not, they change their job, but they set boundaries now and live their life different. They also understand what is really important in their life. So maybe in my case, for example, I'm living completely minimalistic. I had huge household before. I was traveling, moving so often, and I really understood that this simple life, living in a desert, like spending my sabbatical in a desert, made me realize what is really important in my life. Feeling my roots is really, really important. What I really do need to be happy, to feel calm and feel at peace, that was so important that I decided I don't need a lot of material things. I really do need nature. I need the right people in my life. I need to work in a way that makes me happy. I don't care if I have a big car, a big house, and lots of stuff in the house. Actually, I left Chile some years ago with just 2 suitcases. That was all I had.
Nice. What you said, people often come back and set firmer boundaries. What do those boundaries mean practically? What are a few examples of them?
Well, often enough, we go into a sabbatical or a timeout because we're stressed for some reasons. Mm-hmm. As you said before, you're working for hours and hours and never are able to close the laptop. So they realize I should have some time limits, some boundaries about how often I'm available, how much I'm available, how many over hours I'm working. So this kind of boundaries. What kind of relationships I want to have at work? How do I let people talk to me at work? How do I let my boss talk to me at work? How am I responding to people and to requests? If someone asks me to do XYZ, even though it's not my job, do I say yes like always, like before? Or do I just say, you know what? I can take it tomorrow. This is not my responsibility. Like this kind of boundaries that helps them stick with their new identity that they have been finding.
All of those sound really appealing, I have to say. I wonder, obviously, I don't want you to breach any confidentiality that you have with your clients, but I'm curious if there is one story of a personal transformation that has really stuck with you.
Absolutely. Like, it's like my absolute favorite story to tell. It is another PhD chemist in Germany as well. And she was actually not traveling. She was at home. She was like trying to sort out things and also trying to find a new job. So she took a break from the old job and now she had trouble finding a new job. And then we were working together and we had to work on so many limited beliefs that she had. Like she has to be a chemist because she has a PhD in chemistry, so she has to go back to this. Her father wants her to work as a PhD chemist because she has to have a career. And while we were working, I was realizing that she was not really looking for a new job because she failed every interview that she went. Every single one, and she thought it has something to do with her. And we realized and worked out that she didn't even want to be a chemist anymore. She wanted to be an artist, which is completely different from chemistry, right? And completely different lifestyle, completely different salary or money that you deal with. And after 4 months of working together, she said, you know what? You're right, I'm gonna become an artist. I'm just doing it. And she started this day. She found some interim jobs, helping in a chemistry position a little bit, but not like a full-time chemist. And then on the side, she started her art business, and then she combined science with art. And it turned out really beautifully. And then after 2 years, we have been talking again. And I was asking her how everything was going. And she said, you know what? The first half year after my decision, I hated you. She said, I was thinking, like, what did this woman do to me? And then she realized, of course, it was not me doing something to her. It was just me helping her to find these answers that are very uncomfortable. And of course, are scary. And especially when you have to deal with your family, your father, and saying, no, you have to be chemist, you have to do this career. And this is not what you want to do. So she found her identity. She worked through all these beliefs and fears. And then finally, she had the job that she really wanted to do. And dealing with all the looks from outside, like how can you change your high career with a PhD?
Does she still resent you?
No.
Just checking. Yeah, candidly, I think that's the value that you bring, that I bring in working with people one-on-one, is there's a level of accountability to ultimate honesty, to actually going on the trip, to really thinking about who you want to be and having that self-awareness. I'm glad she doesn't resent you anymore. I think that's the right spot to be in. For someone who is watching this and dreams about a personal transformation, dreams about taking a sabbatical, but maybe they're in the private sector and it's less common and they feel stuck.
Mm-hmm.
What is the first step that you would recommend they take?
Okay, so one of the most reasons that I hear why people feel stuck, besides it doesn't look good on my CV, is money. So they say, oh, you know what, I cannot really afford a sabbatical or not to work for a year. And in almost every case, it's not about the money. It's about any fears and any other situations and reasons why they find the excuse of money. And then I would say, if you have the idea of a sabbatical or some time away from normal would be good for you, that's your answer already. It's good for you. You have to do it. Ask yourself, what would be the cost for you if you don't do it? What is the real cost, maybe in money? And there's ways to really have a low budget sabbatical as well. And what are the real costs if you don't do it? You will regret it for the rest of your life. I'm very sure about that. But you will also compromise maybe your health, your mental health. And with mental health, then physical health comes. Your happiness. You might maybe question yourself all the time if you're doing the right thing, if you're in the right job. You might run into a burnout if this is the reason why you're thinking about taking some time off. So money is not the problem. Have a discussion and a conversation with yourself. What is your real fear behind it? And then maybe find someone to talk it through, someone who's not who doesn't have like a stand in it, but who is really more objective and can help you through this decision.
Yeah, getting outside perspectives, I think, helps a lot. When I was contemplating this for myself, as I talked to other people, I had this worry of, I'm not going to be employed again. We're not going to make any money. My husband and I went together, so there was a little bit of hedging. Like, if one of us gets a job, we can make that work for a bit and buy the other one more time. But talking to other people gave me so much motivation because they all said, "Oh yeah, absolutely, do that." And I wasn't expecting that from my friend group, from colleagues who were ambitious, really thoughtful people, to say, yeah, absolutely, you should do that. And now when I talk to clients, and one of their number one concerns is usually the budget, I think they're often surprised, on the travel side, especially if you're going somewhere cheap or where the conversion works well. I think they're often surprised how little it can cost. I say that obviously with the underpinning of overall, this is a privilege, a luxury to be able to take a step back. I don't want to take away from that, but I agree with you. It is often used as an excuse instead of as the real reason, instead of being the real reason why someone isn't going to do it. What's one practice or one habit that you recommend people build into their travel time or their sabbatical time to process, to think through what they are learning?
One thing that helped me very much and that I see many people helping is journaling, writing. And just write down. If you don't know what to write, just start writing something that's on your mind. But write about your experiences, for example. So you're in this new country, you're talking to new people, have new perspective, write about exactly this. And then while you're writing, you can ask yourself things like, what did I learn here about myself? What is different now? Why do I like it or why do I not like it? To really find some things that are underlying, because when you just experience something new, you like it, you don't like it, and that's it. If you really want to process and if you want to change, become another person, you have to verbally process it, or your thoughts have to be out of your mind. And writing is a very good tool, especially when you don't have someone to talk it through, and just write it down. And maybe, who knows, when I was on my sabbatical, I started a blog. Actually, I don't have this blog anymore, but I did have it just to bring my thoughts out. And I had so many fans, mostly my friends, but that doesn't matter. I had so many people reading it, and when I stopped, because I thought I processed the most important things, and I stopped my blog, and I said, when are you writing again? And we really want to read how it's continuing. So that's a nice side effect, but it really helps you to process your own experiences.
I agree. And I did some writing when I traveled. I think continuing to write after the trip helped as well, because I wrote a book about the trip and I continued to edit it. And I think it takes so much time to process what was going on before, what drove me to do this in the first place, why did I want to change, what did I really get out of that experience. It's taken me years, but writing along that entire time helped immensely to verbalize what I was feeling, why I was feeling it, what I wanted to change, etc. Coming home from a sabbatical, Oh boy, that's a unique challenge. I have to say, having done it. Um, I remember everyone asking me, how do you feel about coming back and not quite knowing what to say? Because what do you say to that? I didn't know how I was feeling about it. I knew I was feeling something. I wasn't sure.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure what. Um, what do you think the hardest part of coming home from a sabbatical is?
I think the hardest part is that you did change and nothing around you changed. Like no one else, not the job, not the country, not the family, no one changed as much as you did. And no matter how much work you did in this time, hopefully a lot, but even if you didn't, you are changed. You were out of the system for 1 year and you saw so many new things. And coming back into a place which is the same as before, and you did not do this internal work, and you don't know what your boundaries are now, and you don't know who you are right now, that's tough because you will find yourself in the same situation like before after a few months. So if you are close to a burnout, take a sabbatical, don't work on yourself, but you change anyway. Don't know who you are and what you want to do and well who you want to be afterwards, and then you go back, you're going to be burned out again. So that's the hardest part. And I think here it's the most important why you should really have this transformation in you, that you know your boundaries, you know your non-negotiables, you know your identity, you know what you really want, what's important for you, what you're not going to deal with anymore, and what is like your purpose, why you're doing things. If you know that, it's so much easier to not take it so hard when no one else changed around you.
Yeah, and to fight the inertia because, for example, when I came back, I went right back into the same career space because that's where my network was.
Mm-hmm.
And to get a job in the US, it's what does your network look like? Who's hiring? People recruit you. And so, of course, I would be pulled right back into the same space, the same types of pressures, the same things that were hitting me before in a way that I didn't love. And I was glad I had journaled, to your point, so much during our travels because it gave me the vocabulary to then explain to my boss or a colleague how I had changed, what I felt was really important, that I was still a really hard worker, but these were my boundaries and here's why I was going to stick to them. And have that be a conversation that worked instead of a conversation where someone said, oh, well, Maria, it's, maybe not the same person. I don't know that I want to work with her anymore.
Yeah.
So I think, building that vocabulary really mattered, but you're completely right. It's no one else changed and you're a different person. Oof.
Yeah.
I have one last question for you, Mandy, before we close. If you could give one piece of advice to someone who is on the edge of saying, yeah, I'm going to take a sabbatical,
yeah,
what would it be?
I somehow mentioned it before. It is not a question if you should do it. If you're thinking about it, yes, you have to do it. It's the question, what do you want to happen in this time, during this time? So thinking about, why do I want this? Who do I want to become? What should happen in this time that I'm not at home or that I'm off, that I'm stepping out? That's the most important. That is something you have to know. The if question is just an excuse.
I said it was my last question, but I have a follow-up. What are a couple examples of what you might want to change? Is it those boundaries you were talking about earlier?
It really depends on the situation, why you left in the first place, and what idea you have, what should happen afterwards. Everything between, so for example, I work with 8 elements, and some of them are a complete regeneration. It's not just winding down a bit like in a long vacation, but really regenerate, really understand the emotions that you're living and understanding why you are in a place where you are. There is also A part of it is understanding your patterns, understanding your beliefs, and things like this. So there's a lot of reflection going on. Then experiences are important. If that is traveling to different countries or experiencing a different lifestyle, is very important, because you really have to understand who you are and what you really want. How do you find this out when you don't experience? So these are just two of the elements that I think are very important, that you have to think before, what is it that I'm going to do? Am I just going to do on a big world trip, 30 countries in 30 days, something like this?
That's a lot. Don't do that. That's a bad idea.
Don't do that. Not even in a whole year. Or is it just 1 or 2 countries? Maybe 3. Mm-hmm. Do I want to stay, or do I want to volunteer in an organization that helps animals? Whatever comes to your mind. Mm-hmm. What is it that really is the experience you need? And therefore, you might want to talk to someone that can support you as well. Because sometimes you might be stuck there already and say, I know I want to go, I know I want to be someone else, but how do I find out what I have to do exactly? But This is why you and I are here, right?
That's why you and I are here. And if people want to reach you to go through the 8 elements, for example, with you, how do they contact you?
So for English-speaking audience, the best case is probably LinkedIn, if you have that. I am on Instagram, Facebook, and so on, but my social media platforms are usually in German, because I have a German Facebook group and everything. If you know a little German, or you want to wait until AI is able to translate everything from German as well, yeah. It's going to be easier in the future. But LinkedIn is a very good way of contacting me.
Excellent. All right. Well, Mandy, thank you so much for joining me today. This conversation has really taken me back to 2023 on my own adult gap year. What a transformation that was. I so appreciate you coming on to dig into this very meaty topic with me. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Maria. I'm very grateful to have been here. And yeah, I hope I could help some people make maybe a new decision.
I'm sure you did.